Uh-oh. All right. So we're finally here. If you guys have been watching my shorts for the last couple of weeks, you know that I posted a video of me talking about cooking something up. Well, kitchen's finally cleaned up and meal's ready to eat, so here we go. Pardon my corniness. But basically, as you guys can tell from the title, this is just going to be a kind of an overview of what the heck we're even doing here in the first place. Everybody wants to jump straight into the juicy stuff. They want to know the precise answer to every question that they have, but we all know that that's not really how it works here in the truth-seeking movement. So I guess we'll just kind of go over what the truther movement actually is. It's not really a term that I'm super fond of, but that's what the world has placed this under. But a truther is not necessarily, like, when people think of truther, they think of 24 years ago, the month that we're in now. Alex Jones, Bill Cooper, different people like that, coming out and just being completely polarizing in their claims of just what you could view as maybe nonsensical or not. But realistically, the truther movement is a lot more than just that. It spans topics from forgotten history, stuff that is left out of textbooks, and over time your school's curriculum has weeded out, religious secrecy, hidden doctrines, lost texts, lost scriptures, Edward Snowden, the NSA scandal stuff. Then you've got the whole our kind of thing here, non-human intelligence, UFOs, UAP, aliens, black box government projects. Is that what's going on? And it all kind of funnels down into what does this mean for us and our overall well-being as humans and this modern society. So I guess we'll just get into kind of like a brief overview of the collection of information in general. When did we start writing, how it came to be, what that process was, etc. So it was, probably some 3,000-ish years ago. That's kind of our best guess, that the Sumerians created cuneiform tablets, and those got translated into Egyptian hieroglyphics, and then phonetic languages is kind of the same deal in China. They've found characters on the bones of oracles, so it's kind of understood that this is how our written language came to be. Now, obviously, this was for mostly recording historical purposes, ritual purposes, maybe some concepts that they wanted to write down that were very near and dear to the religious and spiritual aspects of these cultures. Point in time, because as you could assume, 3,000 years ago, not that we have a skewed perspective of how advanced the rest of the world was at that point in time, but it was writing and reading was mostly reserved for your priests, your kings, those who were wealthy, basically anyone who had the time to actually sit down and do these things rather than being out tilling the fields, herding their flock, whatever it may be that is pertaining to their overall livelihood. So in terms of what we're talking about, from that period in time until we'll just use the times of Christ, it's fairly understood that most written language and recorded history was, like I said, ritual practices, religious beliefs, potentially wars with neighboring tribes and nations. The Greeks, began to document all of their stories and stuff about their pantheon and various things regarding their wars and pivotal moments throughout these cultures' histories. It's kind of what writing was reserved for a few thousand years, realistically. People wrote scriptures, and like I said before, not a lot of people had access to these things. I mean, you could imagine a very hot commodity at the time. So if you didn't have money, you were not going to have access to written and created things in general. And at later dates, they had libraries and stuff like that where you could go, because there wasn't 1,000 copies, if not more, of these books and texts that these people had at the time. So we can assume that all of this, the truther movement, starts to change in, maybe the mid-15th century with the creation of the printing press. I know this is where everybody goes back to, but obviously that's going to be a pivotal moment in history when we can mass produce, scripture. Obviously, the Bible was mass printed and passed out amongst Europe. You could maybe claim that, this is obviously the printing press had a lot to do with Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation, but I guess you could say Martin Luther was kind of the first truther in this scenario, even though I won't go as far as to claim that, but if you know the story of Martin Luther, you kind of see what I'm getting at here. But obviously the printing press and the widespread ability to pass on these texts to people changed the game dramatically. When we have this idea of the freedom of information, this was really like the first step that modern civilization had taken towards achieving that goal. At this point in time, this is pre-digital age. Even though there is mass printing of books and stuff like that, people still heavily had to rely on word of mouth. I mean, you had to have money to buy these books. They're not going to print information that is crucial to national security at the time or economic growth. It's assumed that the people controlling the creation of these texts and the printings of them would keep the better information for themselves, correct? I mean, it makes sense. So pamphlets, underground, little book societies, secret societies, anything you could think of, this is how information, even after the printing press was really kind of spreading in networks. And so obviously that idea kind of gives rise to the whole secret societies, like I said, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, Order of the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, anything that you would associate with a secret society, potentially had its origins in just being a gathering place for people that needed to share information that they had received and did not want others to know about in the public. This is a broad assumption, but it's kind of the gist of how these things came to be. So we fast forward to the industrial age. Now, we've got radio. There's the telegraph has been created. We're starting to form a broad network of communication. It's no longer just country to country and town to town. We're progressing rapidly towards a global network of communication at this point in time. And not only that, at this point in time, there was a lot that had kind of hit back to back to back. You had the Civil War in the mid to late 1800s. Then, you get into the early 1900s, you start having the World Wars, World War II. Then mid 1900s, you start getting into Vietnam, Korea, Cold War, all of these things. It just kind of all hit at the same time. Technology, industrialization, and global wars all kind of smashed together at the same time. So at this point in time, people are listening. They need to see what's going on in the world because they're scared. People start to listen and tune into, their truth or what they perceive as truth because they want to be on top of things. They don't want to be caught behind the curve and basically get caught lacking. And of course, at this point in time, you have the atomic age. This is when UFOs start to, kind of fill into the modern mainstream with Roswell and Kingman and even before in Magenta, Italy. All of these things kind of start to hit at the same time. You have JFK, preceding that, Watergate, all of these things that kind of just hit and we were aware of because we had access to the information. Fast forward to the late 90s and early 2000s, the digital age is in full effect at this point. Now, obviously, DARPA had created the internet prior for military use, but early 2000s, people are getting computers in their homes. People have cell phones. The door is busted wide open for people to start picking up on things. One of the key aspects of the rise of the digital age was, as I previously mentioned before, the controlling of the text that we receive. When you're in school and prior, even before the internet, if you were an adult, you were receiving your sources through publishing houses or local newspapers. So these things were being, and we still do this now, but at that point in time, those were the only officiated ways to receive information. They were being controlled by those who owned the publishing companies. So, don't want to get too much into this, but 24 years ago, in the month that we're currently in, some bad things happened, and there was an individual by the name of Alex Jones who was very outspoken about this. Kind of opened Pandora's box for people, looking around and saying, hey, wait a minute, where are we confirming all of this information? How am I, wait a minute, you told me this, who's lying to me? Everybody or nobody? This is kind of the first wave of people starting to pick up on something smelling like crap. Move on to the mid-early 2000s. You've got YouTube, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook. You have all of these platforms where people are solely going to connect with other individuals, and they are allowed to post whatever on there, pretty much whatever. Obviously, there was some major problems with these entities at first regarding freedom of speech, but for the most part, people were accessing information and posting whatever information they wanted as long as it was family friendly. So you could assume this gave rise to a lot of independent journalism and a lot of independent thinkers. Whether that is good or bad, you be the judge. Your mainstream sources, publishing houses and newspaper outlets are posting stories that do not corroborate with multiple other individuals who are, posting with some good evidence that, says otherwise about the official story. And it starts just kind of confusing things, to say the least. At this point, it's just an exponential rise. I don't think that I could particularly put a finger on when the internet, after that 2005, 2006 era really evolved into the truther movement that it is now, but I would say it was more just a collection of people that already had these thoughts that they had the opportunity to connect with others. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I'm sorry for the abrupt ending. This is mainly just because the second part of the video is going to include a lot more specific information, and the first part of this was just kind of getting you guys up to speed on the general concept of how we even get information and how we've even gotten to the point of you and I talking to each other right now. I didn't go super in depth on any of those things. Don't really need to at the moment. This is all stuff that you're going to have to figure out on your own. I can't. My videos would be hours long if I was going to explain every minute detail from 3000 BCE until now. But yeah, guys, stay tuned for part 2. This is going to be where we get into the chunky stuff. I won't say name drops, but I'll definitely say finger pointing to some better resources than I. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Get familiar with the first part so you can actually understand what's coming up in the second one.